All right. 15a. What was the end of this? The Gemara answers, this clause does not serve to exclude some other case. Rather, it is needed to preface the latter clause that teaches that the only people who are accepted as witnesses in cases of damages are free men and members of the covenant. Well, that can include women, members of the covenant.
Yeah, no, but I think they mean like you have to be a man and a Jew.
I think that means slaves. The Mishnah states free men to exclude Canaanite slaves from being valid witnesses, and it states
Yeah.
members of the covenant to exclude Gentile. Okay, so it could be all Jews plus any free slaves.
No, no, it's an and. So it's only men who are Jews.
Wait, only men can be witnesses.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
This is not a win for the woman.
Oh,
The Gemara notes, and it is necessary to teach both exceptions. As had the Torah taught us only about a slave, I might have presumed that he is disqualified from serving as a witness because he has no lineage, i.e., the child of a Canaanite slave is not legally considered to be his child in any sense. But a free Gentile who has lineage, I might say, no, he is qualified. And similarly, had the Torah taught us only about a Gentile, I might have presumed he is disqualified from serving as a witness because he has no connection to the mitzvot of the Torah. But with regard to a Canaanite slave who does have connection to the mitzvot, as he is obligated to keep the mitzvot that a woman is obligated to keep, I might say no, he is qualified. Therefore, it is necessary to teach both exceptions.
why are Canaanites required to keep the mitzvot but other Gentiles aren't? The Mishnah
And
continues.
just Canaanite slaves.
Oh, the Mishnah continues, and women are included in the halachot of damages in the same way as men. The Gemara asks, from where is this matter derived? So maybe they are allowed to be witnesses.
No,
The halakha of damage, or it means that they're liable to pay damages or something.
they're liable, but they can't testify for themselves.
Okay. The
The
Gemara,
Gemara presents.
okay,
Oh, sorry, you go.
yeah. The Gemara presents three sources for this halacha. Rav Yehuda says that Rav says, and similarly, the school of Rabbi Yishmael taught, the verse states with regard to the liability of one who takes a false oath that he had not stolen, when a man or woman shall commit any of the sins of a person. The verse equates a woman with a man in regard to all punishments in the Torah.
Awesome. Awesome. The school of Rabbi Elazar taught the verse states with regard to civil laws given from the following revelation at Sinai. And these are the civil laws that you shall set before them. The reference to them is a verse referring to all those who stood at the revelation, both men and women. The verse thereby equates a woman with a man with regard to civil laws in the Torah.
Okay, so that's nice that they're equal in the law. Like the school of Chizkiah and Rabbi Yosei HaGalili taught, the verse states, with regard to liability in the case where one's ox killed a person and it killed a man or woman, the verse thereby equates a woman with a man with regard to all killings in the Torah, i.e., the liability incurred is the same whether the person killed was a man or a woman. It better be.
Good. The Gemara notes, and all three sources are necessary. As had the Torah taught us only the first source, one might have said that it is there that men and women are equated, as the merciful one had pity upon a woman and made her liable in order that she should achieve atonement through paying restitution. But with regard to civil law, one might say that for a man who is involved in business dealings, yes, the civil laws apply to him, but a woman who is generally not involved in business dealings, the laws do not apply.
Okay, so they're no longer. Or no, it's saying, but with regard to civil law, one might say.
It's just saying why they had to teach us all of it.
Okay.
So they're not yeah, they're not making a judgment about whether the laws do or don't apply.
And had the Torah taught us only that men and women are equated in civil law, one might have said that this is in order that she should be able to sustain herself by engaging in business dealings. Oh, wow. If civil laws did not apply to a woman, one would be wary about conducting business with her. But with regard to obligating a woman to achieve atonement, one might have said that a man who is obligated in mitzvot, yes, he is similarly obligated to achieve atonement, but a woman who is not obligated in all the mitzvot to the same extent as a man, no, the obligation does not apply to her. So they're still saying that they are not entirely equal. They're not just giving reasons.
So So what they're doing right now is they're saying it was necessary. This is all an argument about why it was necessary to say all of the things above. So they're
Yeah.
still just talking about why it was necessary. So they're not making any judgments about it right now.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. Um, And how the Torah taught us only these first two sources, one might have limited the fact that a woman and man are equated to these two cases, here due to the fact that she also needs atonement, and there due to the fact that she needs to be able to sustain herself. But with regard to one's ability for liability for his ox killing a person, one might have said that is only for killing a man who is obligated in all mitzvot. Yes, the owner of the ox is liable to pay ransom, but for killing a woman who is not obligated in all the mitzvot, one might say he is not liable.
And had the Torah taught us only the equivalence of a man and woman with regard to a ransom, one might have thought that this is because it is a very serious matter, as there is a loss of life. But in these first two sources where there is not a loss of life, I would say no, a woman is not included. Accordingly, it is necessary to have all three sources.
Right. The Mishnah concludes, and both the injured party and the one liable for the damage are involved in the payment. An Amoraic dispute was stated with regard to the payment of half the cost of the damage made when one's innocuous ox gores another's animal. Rav Papa says it is monetary restitution for the injured party's loss. Rav Huna, son of Rav Yehoshua, says it is a fine.
Half the damage is monetary restitution for the injured party's loss. The Gemara elucidates. Rav Papa says the payment is monetary restitution, as he holds that even ordinary oxen, which have not been forewarned with regard to goring, are not presumed to be safeguarded, as their nature does not prevent them from acting in a belligerent manner. Therefore, the owner is responsible to safeguard them to prevent them from doing so. Accordingly, if an ox causes damage by goring, by right, it should have been that the owner needs to pay the full cost of the damage. Nevertheless, the merciful one had pity upon him, as his ox had not yet been forewarned, and he was not fully aware of the possibility that it might gore, and accordingly the Torah reduced the extent of his liability. So, like a first
Right.
offender ox pays less.
Yeah, I like it. A first offender ox. Rav Huna, son of Rav Yehoshua, says it is a fine as he holds the ordinary oxen are presumed to be safeguarded, as their nature prevents them from acting in a belligerent manner. Therefore, the owner is not responsible for safeguarding them to prevent them from doing so. Accordingly, if an ox causes damage by goring by right, it should have been that the owner does not pay at all. Nevertheless, the merciful one penalized him in order that he will safeguard his ox, even before it is forewarned, and decreed that a fine should be given to the injured party, even though he is not really entitled to be compensated for his
I
loss.
just love this idea of forewarning your ox. We learned in the Mishnah both the injured party and the one liable for the damage are involved in the payment. Granted, according to the one who says that the payment of half the cost of the damage is monetary restitution, this assumes that the injured party is theoretically entitled to receive the full value of his damaged animal, but in practice receives only half. This is what the Mishnah means by saying that the injured party is also involved in the payment, because it is as though he is compelled to forego half of the cost of the damage that by right he should be paid. But according to the one who says that the payment of half the cost of the damage is a fine, which assumes that the injured party is not really entitled to be compensated for his loss, now that even the money that he takes is not his by right, is it accurate to describe him as being involved in the payment?
Gemara explains the mission statement is necessary only with regard to the fact that the injured party is one who absorbs the loss due to the diminishing value of the carcass between the animal's death and the time the case is brought before the court, since he must absorb his financial loss. It may be said that he is involved in the payment.
The Gemara asks, how can one claim that the Mishnah is referring to the diminishing value of the carcass? Isn't it already taught in the first clause of the Mishnah, which by using the term payments of restitution for damage teaches that the owner of the injured animal attends to, retains ownership of, the animal carcass, and therefore it follows that he bears any depreciation in its value, as the Gemara explained above.
Ooh. The Gemara explains why the Mishnah needs to teach this principle twice. One mention is made with regard to an innocuous ox, and the other one is made with regard to a forewarned ox.
Oh. And it is necessary to state both cases, because if it would teach us the principle only with regard to an innocuous ox, I might say that only there does the Torah limit the liability of the owner of the ox, because it has not yet been forewarned. But with regard to a forewarned ox, I would say the Torah does not limit the owner's liability at all, and the owner must also bear the loss due to the diminishing value of the carcass. And similarly, if it would teach us the principle only with regard to a forewarned ox, I might say that only there does the Torah limit the owner's liability because he is paying the full cost of the damage, so the Torah does not overly burden him. But with regard to an innocuous ox, where he is liable for only half of the damage, I would say the Torah does not limit his liability any further, so he must bear the loss of the diminishing value of the carcass. Therefore, it is necessary to state the principle in both cases.
The Gemara attempts to prove whether the payment of half the cost of the damage is considered to be monetary restitution or a fine. Come in here, a proof from the Mishnah. What is the difference between the liability incurred for damage caused by an innocuous ox and that caused by a forewarned ox? The difference is that the owner of an innocuous ox pays half the cost of the damage exclusively from the proceeds of the sale of its body, and the owner of a forewarned ox pays the full cost of the damage from his superior quality property.
Oh, right. We talked about that a long time ago. I think it's just so funny that they're
Yeah.
they're so interested in what is the injured party paying and what is the injuring party paying. The Gemara explains the challenge posed by the Mishnah. And if it is so, that payment for damage caused by an innocuous ox is considered a fine. Let the Mishnah also teach this additional distinction. The owner of an innocuous ox does not pay based on his own admission, in accordance with the halakha that one does not pay a fine based on one's own admission, whereas the owner of a forewarned ox pays based on his own admission. So, like
The
your
Gemara answers.
innocuous ox, it's
Okay,
okay,
sorry.
like you're not supposed to like like own up to your guilt and be like, oh, my ox gored you. And if it's innocuous, you're not paying based on your own admission. Someone has to have seen it.
The owner of an innocuous ox does not pay based on his own admission in accordance with.
This makes it seem like the person is not allowed to be honest or something like that. It has to require
I
a
feel
thing.
like I don't understand that fully, and I'm sure that there's something that makes sense because I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I don't know. I have to look into that one. The Gemara answers the Tana could have taught this distinction. However, he taught only that certain distinctions. He taught only certain distinctions and omitted others, including this one. The Gemara asks, what else did he omit that he omitted this? The Tana would never omit just a single case. Perforce, there must be another halacha he omitted.
Oh. The Gemara answers, he omitted the halacha that if an innocuous ox kills someone, its owner does not pay even half of the ransom payment, whereas if the ox is forewarned, he pays the full ransom. Who is he?
Wow.
Who omitted this?
Just the Tana. It's just they're saying the other speakers beforehand, and they're just using a he. The Gemara rejects this. If one claims that the Mishnah omits the halacha of one who admits his liability due to the fact that he also omits the halacha that an owner of an innocuous ox does not pay even half of the ransom, that is a flawed claim, as this is not an omission, because one could say, in accordance with whose opinion is this Mishnah? It is in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Yosei HaGalili, who says that when an innocuous ox kills a person, one pays half the ransom, and therefore the distinction between an innocuous and forewarned ox is included in the Mishnah's ruling that an owner of an innocuous ox pays half the cost of the damage. Accordingly, no proof can be adduced from the Mishnah.
Okay. The Gemara points or suggests another proof. I like this. Come and hear a proof from the Mishnah. If one admits, my ox killed so and so, is that Plony? Or my ox killed so and so's ox,
Yes, it is Plony.
then this person pays based on his own admission.
I love Plony.
Plony.
Plony's my favorite character. The Gemara analyzes the Mishnah. What is the halacha of the Mishnah not what? Is the halacha of the Mishnah not stated with regard to an innocuous ox? If so, the Mishnah proves that one is required to pay for half the cost of the damage, even based on one's own admission, which demonstrates the payment is monetary restitution and not a fine.
The Mishnah proves that one is required to pay for half the cost. Okay. Yeah, that's what I was saying. Like, a person should be allowed to be like, no, I'm sorry, my ox gored you. The Gemara rejects the proof. No, the halakha of the Mishnah is stated with regard to a forewarned ox. The Gemara asks, but according to this explanation, if it had been an innocuous ox that gored, what would be the halakha? Would one say that indeed he does not pay based on his own admission? But if so, rather than teaching in the latter clause of the Mishnah in Ketubot, if one admits, my ox killed so and so's Canaanite slave, he does not pay based on his own admission. Let the Mishnah differentiate and teach the distinction with regard to the case which was raised in the first clause itself. The reason for the distinction between the cases when one's ox killed a Jew or a Canaanite slave is that in the first one pays monetary restitution, while in the second one pays a fine. If the Mishnah wishes to demonstrate the difference between a fine and monetary restitution with regard to admission, then instead of introducing a new case, the Mishnah would have modified the case of the previous clause.
The Mishnah would have continued, in what case is this statement in the first clause said? It is said with regard to a forewarned ox, but with regard to an admission that one's innocuous ox gored. He does not pay based on his own admission. The fact that the Mishnah does not do so suggests that, in fact, one is required to pay for half the cost of the damage based on one's own admission that his innocuous ox gored. Evidently, the payment is considered to be monetary restitution.
They are just arguing the dumbest details now. The Gemara rejects this. The reason the Mishnah did not raise the distinction between an innocuous and a forewarned ox is not because that distinction is not a valid one, but because the entire Mishnah speaks only of cases of a forewarned ox. Accordingly, no proof can be adduced from the Mishnah.
Great. The Gemara suggests further, come in here, proof from a concluding clause of the Mishnah just cited. This is the principle. Anyone who pays more than the cost of that which he damaged does not pay based on his own admission. The Gemara infers, what? Is it not that he were liable to pay less than the cost of that which he damaged? He would pay based on his own admission, since when an innocuous ox scores, its owner is liable to pay more than the cost of the damage. The payment is clearly not monetary restitution, and this is why it is not payable based on one's own admission.
The payment is clearly not. So, are they saying that a guilty party would pay
There's
too much?
Yeah, they're talking about the difference between monetary restitution versus a fine. Monetary restitution is you just pay the amount that you damaged. A fine, you pay more, or you might pay less, but a fine has nothing to do with the damage. A fine is
Yeah,
just like
because
you
it says
caused damage, therefore I'm going to give
anyone
you an
who
amount.
pays more than that, the print does not pay based on the cost of that which he damaged. It just seems like they're saying if a person's innocuous ox gored, that anything they pay will be too much.
Yeah, I am getting that feeling.
Which I think that's weird because they gotta pay something. The Gemara
Yeah.
rejects the inference. No, one should only infer that were he liable to pay as much as the cost of that which he damaged, he pays based on his own admission.
Yeah.
If the sum to be paid is more or less than the cost of that which he damaged, he would not pay based on his own admission.
Oh, I get it. I think I get it. So you
There's
can't
always something.
trust um somebody's admission about how much they damaged.
Mhm.
So if he's liable to pay as much, nope, that's the opposite.
I
Never
mean, I
mind.
think I know what you're going. Like you're saying, like there should be a known price for this ox based on the owner, and if the person who's
Right.
injured says, "I'm gonna pay this much because this is what I believe it's worth," I think that's where they're going. Hopefully, like I believe your ox was worth $500, but really it was worth like $700 or something. I don't know. Maybe it's like that. We can't rely on the injured party because they don't know the value of the creature.
Yes.
I don't know. The Gemara asks, but according to that opinion, where one is liable to pay less than the cost of the damage, what would be the halacha? Would
Yeah.
one say that indeed he does not pay based on his own admission? If so, instead of teaching this is the principle, anyone who pays more than the cost of that which he damaged does not pay based on his own admission, let the Mishnah teach instead this is the principle. Anyone who does not pay as much as the cost of that which he damaged does not pay based on his own admission. Okay, yeah, so this sort of makes more sense. As that statement indicates, cases where one is liable to pay more than the cost of that which he damaged, and it also indicates cases where one is liable to pay less than the cost of that which he damaged. Evidently, the Mishnah holds that where one's liability is for less than the cost of the damage, it is payable based on one's own admission. This, therefore, provides a conclusive refutation of the opinion that the payment for half the cost of the damage is a fine.
The Gemara adds, and the halakha is that the payment for half the cost of the damage is a fine. The Gemara notes the obvious inconsistency. How can it be that the Gemara offers a conclusive refutation of the opinion that the payment for half the cost of the damage is a fine, and then state that the halakha is in accordance with that opinion? I don't know.
The Gemara explains, yes, the halacha may be in accordance with that opinion because of the following resolution of the refutation. What is the reason that the Gemara held that there is a conclusive refutation of the opinion that the payment for half the cost of the damage is a fine? Because the Mishnah does not teach anyone who does not pay as much as the cost of that which he damaged does not pay based on his own admission. This
Doesn't
is
teach
not,
that.
in fact, a conclusive refutation, as even if one holds that the payment of half the cost of the damage for an innocuous ox is considered monetary restitution, one can still explain why the Mishnah doesn't discuss cases where one is liable for less than the cost of the damage. So this it's one of those things where it's like, I think this is what they mean. Like all bananas are fruit, but not all fruit are bananas. I think that's what they're saying. Something like
Hmm,
this. What is a monetary restitution?
I think. This is because the Tana cannot make an absolute statement about such cases that one never pays based on one's own admission, since there is an obligation to pay for half the cost of the damage resulting from pebbles inadvertently propelled by the foot of a walking animal, which through the tradition is learned that this payment is monetary restitution, and it is due to that reason that the Mishnah does not teach the case where one's liability is valued at less than the cost of the damage.
Is this considered goring if pebbles are coming from your animal?
No, I think that's more like pit.
Yeah. Or fire? The Gemara considers the ramifications of this halacha. And now that you have said that the halacha is that the payment of half the cost of the damage is a fine, with regard to this innocuous dog that ate lambs, or this innocuous cat that ate a chicken, which is atypical behavior for dogs and cats, we do not collect the payment for these acts in the courts of Babylonia.
Mm.
Since it is not common for these animals to eat those animals, these acts are classified as goring, irrespective of the
Oh.
fact that the animal gained pleasure from the damage, for which it would normally be classified in the category of eating. Therefore,
Oh.
in cases where these animals had not performed this act of damaging before, and were therefore considered innocuous, the owner is liable for only half the cost of the damage, which is a fine. Since the collection of fines may be imposed only by judges who have been ordained, and ordination is given only in Eretz Israel, these payments are not collected in Babylonia. Well
Got it.
then, wow, okay, so you're almost never going to pay because how many judges were still existing who had come from Eretz Israel?
Well, I mean, you're not gonna pay for those kinds of things.
Yeah.
Um, the Gemara adds, and this matter applies only to where they attacked large animals, as is atypical behavior for them. But where they attack small animals, since that is their typical manner of behavior, it is classified as eating, for which the owner pays the full cost of the damage, which is certainly considered monetary restitution. Accordingly, the payment is collected in the courts of Babylonia because that's like normal.
Yeah. And
They're
even
like, we're gonna save the big problems for when we're out of exile. We can't.
yeah, yeah, like your cat ate a chicken, we're gonna save that for 1,000 years. And even in a case where the payment is considered a fine, if the injured party seized the property of the owner of the belligerent animal in order to cover his loss, we do not reclaim it from him since he is entitled to it. Okay, I'm
Mm.
gonna go just take your car now because you injured my ox or something.
And also, if the injured party said to the court, fix a time for me to go to Eretz Israel to present the case before ordained judges, we fix a time for him and require the owner of the belligerent animal to go to the court of Eretz Israel at that time. If he does not go, we excommunicate him for disobeying the orders of the court.
What
You
if the
guys
animal
go when the
dies
court
in that
calls.
time? What if it takes like a year for anyone to go to Eretz Israel?
Well, they better go. That's
That's so funny. And either way, we excommunicate the owner of the belligerent animal until he removes the damage by killing the animal or otherwise neutralizing the danger.
oh
But they
my
have to keep it
gosh.
alive. They have to keep it alive long enough to take it to court.
No, they don't have to take the animal to court, just
They
the
have to,
owner.
no, they have to take the animal to Eretz Israel at least.
No, just
Oh wait,
not the animal, just the
oh,
owner.
just the person. Okay.
Yeah. The justification for this is from the ruling of Rabbi Natan. As it is taught in a Baraita, Rabbi Natan says, "From where is it derived that one may not raise a vicious dog in his house, and one may not set up an unstable ladder in his house?" The verse states, "You shall not bring blood into your house,"
Hmm.
i.e., one may not allow a hazardous situation or item to remain in one's house. As long as the hazard remains, the owner is in violation of the verse, and therefore the court may excommunicate him for failing to remove the danger. Guys, train your dogs. That's what the Talmud is saying. Train your
I know,
dogs.
like I was thinking about pit bulls and all the controversy and stuff, and it, like, wow, okay. The Mishnah. There are 5 damage-causing acts that an animal can perform twice and remain innocuous, even when its owner was warned each time to prevent it from doing so. So you get 3 warnings. After the third time, the animal is rendered forewarned. In such cases, the owner is liable to pay only half of the damages. And there are 5 damage-causing acts for which an animal is considered forewarned, at times even if it had never caused damage in that manner. That's not fair. In such cases,
Oh.
the owner is liable to pay the full cost of the damage.
An animal is not considered forewarned with regard to goring, not for goring with its horns, not for pushing with its body, nor for biting, nor for crouching upon items in order to damage them, nor for kicking. In these cases, the animal is considered to be innocuous and its owner is liable for only half the damages.
Crouching upon items to damage them, like a cat. Concerning acts of damage performed with the tooth, the animal is considered forewarned with regard to eating that which is fitting for it to eat. Concerning acts of
Oh.
damage performed with the foot, the animal is considered forewarned with regard to breaking items while walking. They can't, like, if it's a horse or an ox, like, they can't help it. And there is a forewarned ox, which gored 3 times, and each time his owner was warned to safeguard his ox from doing so. And there is an ox that causes damage to the property of the injured party while on the property of the injured party. And there is the person, i.e., any damage done by a person. In all of these cases, the one who caused the damage is considered to be forewarned, resulting in the obligation to pay the full cost of the damage.
Mhm. The Mishnah presents the halakha for wild animals: the wolf, the lion, the bear, the leopard, the bardellas, meaning the meaning of which the Gemara will discuss, and the snake. These are considered forewarned, even if they had never previously caused damage. Rabbi Elazar says, when these animals are domesticated, they are not considered forewarned, but the snake is always considered forewarned.
Did they think they would domesticate a lion or a bear?
I guess.
The Gemara. From the fact that the Mishnah teaches in its latter clause concerning acts of damage performed with the tooth, the animal is considered forewarned with regard to eating that which is fitting for it to eat. We learn by inference that we are dealing throughout the Mishnah with cases of damage done in the courtyard of the injured party, as one is exempt from liability for acts of damage classified as eating if they occur in the public domain. And
Oh,
yet, the first clause teaches, so it's like we could be out in the public street and there my cat eats your rabbit and it's fine, I guess.
if they're both out in public.
Yeah, and yet the first clause teaches an animal is not considered forewarned with regard to goring. Stating that it is not forewarned indicates that the liability of its owner is limited only with regard to paying the full cost of the damage, but the owner pays half the cost of the damage.
Mara asks, who is it that holds that when damage classified as goring is done within the property of the injured party, the owner of the belligerent animal is liable for only half the damages? It is the rabbis who say the halakha of cases of goring performed by an innocuous animal, which is atypical behavior done in the courtyard of the injured party, is that the owner of the ox pays half the cost of the damage.
But then say, and try to explain accordingly the next part of the latter clause of the Mishnah. And there is a forewarned ox that gored 3 times, and each time his owner was warned to safeguard his ox from doing so. And there is an ox that causes damage to the property of the injured party while on the property of the injured party. And there is the person. In these cases, the responsible party pays full damages. With this clause, we arrive at the opinion of Rabbi Tarfon, who says the halakha of cases of goring performed by an innocuous animal, which is atypical, done in the courtyard of the injured party, is that the owner of the ox pays the full cost of the damage, even if the ox is innocuous, because it's on
The
someone else's
Gemara
property.
asks, yeah, yeah. The Gemara asks, could it be that the first part of the latter clause of the Mishnah is in accordance with the opinion of the rabbis, and the next part of the latter clause is in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Tarfon?
The Gemara answers, yes, as Shmuel said to Rav Yehuda, Large-toothed one, leave the Mishnah and follow after me, and my interpretation that the first part of the latter clause of the Mishnah is in accordance with the opinion of the rabbis, and the next part of the latter clause is in opinion with blah blah blah. Okay. The Gemara presents a different interpretation of the Mishnah. Rav Elazar said in the name of Rav something.
We will find out tomorrow.
Large-toothed one? Did Rav Yehuda like insult Shmuel?
I think so.
Wow, okay, that's so funny. These guys.
I think so.
All right, thank you for studying with us. Bye.